Greetings, dear horrors. You are watching or listening to Horror Nerds at Church, a ridiculously queer podcast where we take a deep dive into a horror film and talk about how it connects to queerness, religion, and theology. I'm Pastor Emily, and I am Weirdo.
UTS. I'm Pace, and I am not quite this movie, but I am the ghost that visits rich people in the night and asks them to give their money to the poor and be better people.
Asks them?
Scares them into, gives them no choice, shows them that they will die anyway.
Just
all
checking.
those things. Yeah. You, Susanna.
Oh,
your turn.
My turn? Okay, sorry.
Yep.
I was like, who am I? You took the weirdo. Damn. Okay, I know who I am. I am the spirit of killing your bio family. It's festive.
And I am Brother J.M. Longworth. I am the queer auntie who just arrived in time for the holidays.
Woo! Are
Love
you
it.
the drunk queer auntie, or are you the sober queer auntie?
I mean, based on recent track record, I have to go with sober, but you know.
Not on purpose.
Do you bring the drunk vibes though, even if you're sober?
I am always awkward and goofy, so yeah, probably.
Perfect. Love it. Follow us on Patreon at patreon.com/horrornerdsatchurch. It starts at only $5 to sign up. And dropping this month, you will get some of these options, all of these options, who knows?
Number of.
Yeah, you got Friday the 13th already, part 3, 3D, because that one we felt we had to do because Friday the 13th is so rare. But you may, in addition, get a horror buff episode on the witches, or on you may get movie commentaries on The Vivitch, which we also covered in season 2, and Matilda the Musical. You may get BooTubes on classic Doctor Who, the witches episodes, the Daemons, the Image of Fendal, the Brain of Morbius, and the American Horror Story season 3, Coven. Some combination of those. We'll figure it out.
We'll do at least a movie commentary, I think, because
I'm off the whole week after Christmas, so maybe we can catch up. We'll see.
Perfect. That's my busy time. Can't wait.
Then never mind.
We can make it work. Anyway, if you are listening to this episode on your favorite podcast provider, check the show notes for any content warnings for this episode, links to all the books we mentioned in our book on our bookshop.org store, and for everyone watching or listening, check the show notes for links to our newsletter, merch store, and Patreon. And woohoo! And we are super excited this Christmas to have back with us again from Christmas Past. It's like the ghost of Christmas Past. Brother J.M. Longworth, who is a life-professed member of the Order of Ecumenical Franciscans, an ordained minister, a spiritual director, and a housing social worker in Vermont. They love to write, garden, wander in the woods, go for dog walks, and fight for a future where everyone has a home. Welcome back, JM.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We are
Yeah.
super excited to have you back. I'm excited because I haven't had a horror nerds at church thing, and we were talking before this, and I had not realized how into horror and like analyzing and deconstructing horror you were. So
Yeah.
now I
Yeah.
know, and I'm excited even more.
Yeah, go back and listen to our Silent Night, Deadly Night episode from season 2. That was predating Emily as co-host, but JM joined us for that, and we got into some really fun Catholic horror and all sorts of other trauma and adoption and holidays.
I was thinking about watching Silent Night, Deadly Night because it got a shout out in one of the other Christmas movies I was watching. So maybe I will.
It's an experience.
It is most certainly that.
I feel like I saw it last year, but I don't remember actually.
There's 5 of them, and then there's a remake, and then there's a kind of parallel universe spirit sibling or something of it. So there are like 7 in the franchise if you want to
So
watch the whole franchise.
what I'm hearing you say is we're gonna have a Christmas season.
But there is so much Christmas horror. We could have many Christmas seasons if we wanted to.
Okay. Okay. I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Merry Christmas
Anyway, yeah. You're
and
watching.
Happy Hanukkah.
Yeah, same day this year.
There.
Woo.
Yeah. Very exciting.
Yeah. So if all goes according to plan, this is dropping to your eye holes and ear holes on your video services like Facebook and YouTube, and on your podcast services on Christmas Day. We by tradition release a holiday episode on Christmas Day. We've done Gremlins. That was our first one, was Gremlins, and then I don't remember what last year was. Last year was probably Krampus, actually.
Yeah. We've done Gremlins and Krampus.
I think we
So
should have done
far.
Krampus on Krampusnacht, but we did it on Christmas instead. Oh well.
Well, it happened.
But yeah. So I don't really have any announcements other than thanks for bearing with us. It's been a while since we dropped an episode on the main feed and on Patreon because of an abundance of family emergencies and moving stress that all happened at the same time. So this
Indeed.
is probably going to be our first episode back since Thanksgiving, since we covered Thanksgiving.
Yeah. That tracks. Jeez. Also, this is the like one of the shortest Christmas or Thanksgiving to Christmas times. This is like it is actually the shortest amount of time between Christmas and Thanksgiving. Why? Because the fourth Thursday in November this year was the 28th, which is the last day that can be the fourth Thursday because it's my birthday, so I know these things. Random Thursday November facts.
If you would like to get Emily a belated birthday present or Pace, Emily and Susanna a Christmas present, please become a Patreon subscriber. And if you want to get JM a Christmas present, where can they donate to your housing stuff?
Oh, I would love it if folks would visit cotsonline.org. And there's still time to donate to the annual phone-a-thon to help support our services this winter. Probably the most exciting thing we have going is that we've got a new shelter opening up. So we're going to have a little bit of extra capacity this winter.
Oh, that's awesome.
Ooh, awesome. Yeah. So cotsonline.org.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that's linked in the show notes as well.
Nice.
So how's everyone been? What are you drinking if you're drinking anything? What have you been watching or reading if you've been doing any of those things lately? It's a busy time of year, so the answer can be none of the above for all of it, which is cool.
Right. And then I go back to the techie things. I have been moving and going nuts because, and I just want to give a shout out to all you ADHD people out there who have done the moving process before. It is hell, especially when something gets in the way, and so you have to do stuff at last minute, and then you end up in this situation where you have shit piles, or what I call them shit piles, but most ADHD people call them the piles of doom. And we do have lots of doom, and there's doom everywhere. And while it's a bigger house, my space in particular is smaller. So like, I just am making a whole lot of things fit in one room because I have that ADHD problem of like getting a different interest every 2 weeks. So, I have watercolors and watercolor pencils and art supplies and all the different art things I went through when my mother died because that's how I like dealt. And it's just all being smushed into this one house. But um it's a process, but I remind myself how much I've always wanted this. And the thing is that what I'm really struggling with, y'all, is that when you are a queer person with toxic family background, bio family background, and you're becoming a queer chosen family, you don't necessarily leave your toxic background at the door. Right? You take it with you, all of your traumas, all of your triggers, all those things. And I am having trouble even fathoming, even understanding the concept of who could be a therapist, except maybe JM. It just occurred to me. Who could be at least who could give us direction as a queer family? Because I don't know any therapist who, just so that we can check in as a family and see how we're doing as a family and living in community, because there's not a lot of data out there on what we're doing. Like 7 mostly queer adults deciding to be family together, 3 of whom are disabled at the moment, most of which are autistic all of which are autistic or ADHD. Like, so there's neurodivergence, there's disability, and things are going well. Like, we're managing really well. And when we hit bumps in the road, we talk about it. Mostly because what JM told me once, which was, they said, if you're communicating at all, you're doing better. Like you're doing better than not, like, if you weren't communicating. So like when I don't know what to do, I just communicate, like blah, falls out my mouth. Whether it's right or wrong or whatever, at least I'm communicating, right? And that just figuring
that's actually like really comforting, because it's true. My family, no communication and then explosion. And so communication is better than not communication.
So like at the moment, like I've gone searching, and like even Chase Brexton doesn't have any therapists that are like actually, which is, for those of you who don't know what Chase Brexton is, and predominantly LGBTQIA health provider in Baltimore. It started off as an AIDS crisis center in the 70s in the 80s, and it's become full blown all of the things, including a mental health arm. But their therapists aren't even, like, sometimes they have queer therapists, but they don't actually know how to they don't have anybody trained in this either. Nobody does. So anyway, so a lot of that's what I'm struggling with right now. That and moving at the same time. How about y'all?
And sickness and emergency things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's real. I feel like I'm finally like settling in from all of the moving and family emergencies, and I have only rearranged my room. Today was only this first time rearranging my room, third time redesigning, thinking, planning on my
Wow.
room. And it has, my bed is like unusable right now, but the rest of the room, like my brain is like, oh, this is what it feels like to think again. So that's very exciting, and it's perfect timing because I am also in the throes of a group mural that I am doing with a congregation here in the Baltimore suburbs. So I'm like painting 6. I've done 5 are complete, 5 are half complete, and no, 10 are complete, 10 are half complete, and 44 more need to be painted by Christmas.
Wow.
But it's just like, it's paint one half, let it dry, put the tape on, paint the other half. So it's not the most complicated. Like the assembly is going to be the thing that happens between Christmas and Epiphany, so that it can be like up for Epiphany. But yeah, which is why I'm watching all the Christmas movies, because I just put one on and paint and put one on and paint. Yeah, so I've been doing that, and I'm on Stars Above, which is the final book. So there are two graphic novels in the Lunar Chronicles series, which I've been reading for about 9 months, about as long as Mary was pregnant. Probably. Yeah. Almost there, almost done. Yeah, that's me. Yeah. What about you, Jam?
So the Big Red Cup tonight is currently full of hydrogen hydroxide, which is one of nature's most powerful solvents, and is so powerful that it can actually dissolve living things over time. So yeah, that's fun and a little bit kind of horrific. Also, in terms of the thing I'm watching right now has two different connections. So something a little bit spooky is a Netflix murder box or mystery box murder show called No Good Deed, with Ray Romano and Lisa Kudrow of Friends fame. And all I can say is that at the moment it's frustrating. Maybe it'll get somewhere. There's been a couple really good murders and no idea what's going on. And I would really like to. I'm very familiar when I'm watching a mystery with usually being able to trace the threads very quickly and kind of solve the mystery. So if I can find something that I can't quite figure out yet, that intrigues me. And then earlier this fall, we were super into Crime Scene Kitchen on Fox, which is hosted by Joel McHale, who also appears in this episode's movie. And so during the movie, I occasionally expected him to either start a baking competition or invite people to search the kitchen to see what had been baked there. And that didn't happen. So, it turns out that Crime Scene Kitchen and this week's feature film are not in the same cinematic universe.
Sadly. Yeah, I love Joel McHale. Anything he's in, I try to see. I've been a fan of his since he hosted The Soup. If anyone remembers that show from like the mid-aughts to early 2010s.
That was the social media thread before they existed.
Right?
I don't know.
So good.
Was he the mayor in this though? Is that who we were talking about?
No, Justin Long was the mayor. Joel McHale is the dad.
Oh, okay.
Joel McHale is also in Community. People know him from that, I think, and a few movies. Gotcha. And Justin Long, speaking of the guy who plays the mayor, he's in a lot too, but we'll get there. But I just love how he's kind of in his 40s has started acting in a lot of more horror roles and kind of owning the fact that people see him as this like really laid back kind of guy, or he's been in a lot of comedies and stuff, and he's using that kind of like white boy innocence to play some really intriguing roles, and it's very intentional too, and I just think that's awesome. But anyway, what I've been up to, I've been watching a lot, I've been reading a lot. I just got Godzilla in 4K and watched the new Criterion 4K disc that came out, and holy shit, is it beautiful in 4K. The original 1958, I think that might be late 58 film, and oh my god, it's so beautiful. And y'all know I'm a Godzilla fan, and I've talked about it so many times on the podcast, and we're going to do a future Godzilla season, which we'll have to have JM back for, because we learned before the show that JM wrote was it master's or undergrad, like that you
undergrad
wrote,
undergrad
you wrote a paper about Godzilla and Dawn of the Dead. So I love it.
Or- yeah.
And oh, and I am drinking tonight Dunkin' Spiced Peppermint Mocha Iced Latte, which is not good, but it's something we had in the house and I need caffeine. So,
That I have similar to Jam, dihydrogen monoxide. Um, and I have as a just in case a Dr. Pepper because
yay,
it's
Dr.
been a
Pepper.
time. And I've been up since way too early this morning, fighting with. Uh, I'm not going to say it because apparently now we can get sued for complaining about insurance companies and arrested and stuff. But I'm just going to say that United is earning their reputation in mine.
Yeah,
Is it,
which
is
is
it,
a
Today.
yeah, which is a great transition to talking about real life horror to asking our favorite question of the show, which is
Yes.
we ask all our guests if they have a real life church horror story. It can be a theologically horrific story. It can be people being shitty, which is often the case in churches because they're people and family systems are usually enacted on large scale in churches. And then also, it can be a supernatural horror story, and we've had everything from exorcisms to conversion therapy on here. So anything that fits the bill for uh, you, Jam, that you'd love to share with us.
yeah. So all of us here have at least for some portion of our life worked in and around churches, and there is nothing creepier than an empty church building, especially late at night, when everything's closed down, all the lights are off, and all of that. And there's a lot of it's almost like when everything's powered down, you get that inversion of a sense of sacred space. So instead of bright, open, welcoming, it feels creepy and tomb-like. So there's that natural kind of edge that comes with moving around a building in the dark. The original, the building I worked at for my call in Massachusetts, for months, people were reporting haunting symptoms, noises, footsteps, the sense of like someone just around the corner but not seeing anyone, right? And this just went on and went on and went on. And this church had a humongous spire and tower. So you had to go up a whole flight of stairs to get to the choir loft where the organ console was. And then behind that was the room where the actual organ works were. And then behind that, there was another room. And then behind that, there was access to where you could actually climb up the ladders up into the bell tower to go maintain the mechanism. And so people were convinced, right? Ghosts. Stuff was not going missing, but moving around within the building when no one was there. Noises, sounds, people being creeped out at night. The real life horror part of it, though, is that what had happened was that a family who had nowhere to live had quietly slipped into the building when it was open and found their way into the loft, into the room behind the organ, into the room that leads to the tower, and had set up a small encampment in the church spire. And that just wasn't a space that people went in for any reason for the most part. And so they camped out in the church tower for weeks. And, in this case, the people weren't too awful with them. They did help them get to a shelter program, but there was a way in which the readiness that people had to ascribe the noises, the voices, the footsteps, all of that to ghosts before thinking about neighbors in need. To me, that's the horror part of it, right? It's scary that people were willing to spiritualize and supernaturalize what was actually real life people that they could have helped sooner if they had paid more attention to what was really going on inside their own building.
And to real life horror, right? Like the horror of literally having nowhere to be and to have shelter except in a church where you have to sneak in and be invisible when like so much of church at least in the ways that we talk about it, is about welcoming and recognizing and acknowledging people for who they are and where they're
Yeah.
at, and then to instead be hiding in exactly in a church
Hmm.
that I'm assuming at least claimed to be welcoming
Yes.
at the time. And yeah. Oof. It's,
So there you go. We had ghosts in the bell tower, but it turned out the ghosts were actually people who they weren't ethereal, they were just invisible thanks to the world in which we live.
Mm.
they're a good one.
Wow. So like the moral for me is that the marginalized were basically invisibilized.
Hmm. And even mythologized, right?
Yeah.
It must be spooky creatures instead of like people in need.
Mhm.
That reminds me. Sorry, I'm buffying again. But it reminds me of that one episode where like I'm here but nobody can see me. That type of thing. Like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oof.
We even had a little bit of that in the movie for this week too,
Right.
of like being
Yeah.
visible and invisible at the same time.
Yeah.
Which
I'm
is an
dead
amazing
and
segue.
invisible. I'm not. Yes.
A
We just need.
transition.
Yeah.
Well done,
Wow.
JM. JM for the transitions.
So the movie we're covering is It's a Wonderful Knife, which is an kind of a parody and commentary on It's a Wonderful Life, the classic Christmas film. Directed by Tyler McIntyre, came out in 2023. But I also want to point out the writer this time, Michael Kennedy, who is becoming a larger name in horror lately, queer author. And we'll talk about that a little bit in the behind the scenes. But 2023 was the big year in movie. Can you remember a whole year ago? Barbenheimer was the big thing everyone was talking about, which I Barbenheimered, I'm proud to say.
I
Super
did
Mario
not.
Brothers, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Wonka, The Little Mermaid, the live-action remake, Shazam, Fury of the Gods, The Flash, Elemental, Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny, Blue Beetle, The Marvels, The Hunger Games, Battle of Songbirds and Snakes, and the Disney animated film Wish. Then in horror world, we had Thanksgiving, which we covered this season, our last episode on the main feed. M3gan, or Megan, Fear, Knock at the Cabin, Cocaine Bear, Children of the Corn, um, remake, and we covered the original in season 4.
Our dreams.
Scream, yeah, Scream 6, Renfield, The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Both are kind of Dracula stories, and we covered Dracula season 3. The Pope's Exorcist, Evil Dead Rise, The Blackening, Insidious, the fifth one, whichever one the latest is, Haunted Mansion, Saw X or Saw 10, The Exorcist Believer. We covered The Exorcist with TJ Tranchel last season. And yeah, big year in film.
I watched way more of the other ones than the horror ones.
Which is always the case.
It's
Well,
true,
almost
but I
always the
watched
case.
like a fair amount of movies last year, apparently.
Yeah.
Yes.
I loved Renfield. I loved the actor who
Yeah.
played Renfield, but then also just the idea of allowing Nicolas Cage to have a role where he can kind of act as a commentary on the fact that he acts in an unhinged manner was fantastic.
Yep. Yep.
Wait, was he a vampire?
Dracula's the vampire. Renfield is the guy who's kind of Dracula's servant slash maybe part vampire.
Oh, okay. And
In
that's
the
who
original.
and that's who Nicolas Cage was?
Nicolas
No.
Cage got to play Dracula.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was trying to ask.
Yeah.
Okay.
That tracks. Nicolas Cage's Dracula tracks.
And Chris Holt, is that his last name? Played
Yes.
Renfield.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've been meaning to watch that. Is it really good?
it's good.
Okay.
Really good is relative, but it's good. It's fun. I think it's fun. That's how
I would
say
describe it as a romp.
Okay.
Yes, that's a great way to describe it.
Okay.
And I'm over here like, Oh, I was meaning to watch Wish. Should probably watch that.
Yeah. I've
Hey.
watched almost every single movie that I named. I've
Right.
This
Talking
is my
about therapeutic peer support, have you ever wanted to see a ghoul go to a Codependence Anonymous meeting?
Yeah.
Then go see that film.
yes.
That's fantastic. I mean, that seems like the most apropos, like, meeting for ghosts. Like, literally can't pass on. Got unfinished business. That tracks. Sticking around. All right. I will watch it then.
So y'all, when was the first time you have seen Silent Night, Deadly Night?
Yesterday.
I ready for this? Last year. Yes.
Yeah, a rare one
I
Emily saw
know.
before this podcast.
I saw it
That
last
is, like,
night.
never the case.
Wow. Last year, really?
Yeah.
Because it was a Christmas movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is the behind the scenes story for this, because this goes into when I saw it. I saw it the day it premiered on Shudder, because I have a Shudder AMC Plus subscription and I love it. And as soon as I heard about this movie, I wanted to see it. It might have not been the day, but basically within the week it came out. And I loved it so much. And I said to Emily, Emily, I want to watch this movie with you. I'm very curious what you'll think for our Advent Miss Mini that we were doing last year, which was a movie calendar we used to do, leading up
And
to
we'll do
Advent
it
and then
then.
through Christmas and Epiphany. So we watched it, and I was so excited to show it to Emily. And you liked it, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I liked it. I liked it again this time.
Yeah.
Susanna did not. But I really like this. I like this movie. I like the queering of it. I like the things that it says about capitalism and, like, people that take over
Yeah.
small towns and, like, power, and, like, I really liked it.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
cute, and it was a fun take on It's a Wonderful Life.
hmm Which is also very much a commentary on capitalism, but more of the capitalists can be benevolent vibes in this one, which is nope, they're just wrong.
Yeah.
Bad.
Nope.
Um, yeah, so a little bit behind the scenes is that yes, it's an intentional horror comedy parody of It's a Wonderful Life. The screenwriter Michael Kennedy is an up and coming name in horror. He wrote he's kind of become associated with like queer horror. He has the upcoming movie this coming year, Heart Eyes, which is a Valentine's Day themed horror movie. He wrote the slasher film Freaky, which is kind of a parody of what is that one called? With the remake had Lindsay Lohan, the original with the
Friday.
twin.
Oh, Freaky Friday.
Freaky Friday, yeah.
Yeah.
So Freaky is a horror parody of that, which is kind of fun.
Wait, or is
He's
it
just
Parent Trap?
no, it's the Freaky Friday, yeah.
Okay.
Where the mom and the daughter switch bodies,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, a teen and a serial killer switch bodies is kind of the theme of Freaky. Right? Just such a fun concept. Like Michael Kennedy is just known for these really fun concepts. He's queer in real life, so he writes so he always writes in queerness into his horror films, which I love. But believe it or not, Jane Widdop and Jess McLeod, who played Winnie and Bernie, were not originally written to be bisexual. The rest of the queer characters were. But the actors who played Winnie and Bernie, when they met each other and kind of noticed their on screen chemistry, they said, we should just make the characters end up making out together in the film. And so they brought it to Michael Kennedy and Tyler McIntyre, and they're like, sure. So they kind of wrote in that queer aspect of the film based on the suggestion of the actors, which I love.
That's brilliant, because it is That's fascinating because the movie at the beginning definitely plays like she's cishet, like when he's cishet, and
Yeah.
she's just going through the like. She has a crappy boyfriend who cheats on her, and that's life for the cishet. Yeah, and then to know that like it really was. Huh,
Yeah.
I like that's awesome.
Yeah, but they're one of, well, that couple is one of 3 openly queer
Yeah,
people named, which I love, because the aunt and her wife or partner were queer as well, and then also her brother's queer. Like, it's just really interesting.
yeah, but it definitely plays off like she isn't, and so then you get like the cishet main character, and then it's like, oh
I think
no,
I
she's
think we
actually,
I think to
which
be
I love.
true to reality and name that bisexuals tend to be invisible in queer communities and especially in cishet communities. We we are assuming they are she is cishet because there's nothing to indicate otherwise at first, but that is on us for assuming just because she's not in a bi relationship at the time
I mean,
or a
also
relationship with a
because
person of the same sex.
also that at least at a minimum she is not out to her parents because her gay brother gets a rainbow ornament for Christmas and she makes fun of him because he has to have that forever and put it up because that's the kind of mom they have.
True.
So this behind the scenes fact actually for me affirms the just the spidey sense I had that this relationship develops along sort of a demisexual trajectory, right?
Mm,
That they would not have known their physical attraction to each other if they had not gone through this profound friendship experience.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it wasn't just that, like, girl meets girl and girls save the world. I mean, they do that too, but like,
Yeah.
but the way that their relationship builds for me has that component to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I love it. Yeah.
Well, do we all have a 1 sentence summary for this film?
Yes.
I mean, mine's just too long and over analytical, but I'm still going to go with it. This is
Do it,
all about
please.
triumphing over the fear of coming out as a late bloomer. Now, mind you, they're seniors in high school, but no one in this movie was actually a senior in high school.
Right.
And this late bloomer coming out happens in the shadow of your homonormative family members.
Right.
And
Ooh, so good.
so there's this way that it's all about that, this, but then some.
Yeah, I like it.
I like it too. And your 1 sentence summary is nowhere near too long. It has become a running joke between Emily and I to try to make ours shorter and shorter. But when we started this, Emily's would be like a
At least
paragraph that was
2 or 3
somehow
lines.
still, yeah,
Oh
like a
my.
compound sentence.
Oh, so there's
It was
Emily and
still
then there's the
one
Apostle
sentence.
Paul.
Yeah.
Queens of run-on sentences.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Pretty much. Yeah, but this time my 1 sentence summary is queer love beats capitalist murder,
It's true.
which
It's
is
true.
shorter than haste.
Every time a bell rings, someone dies.
There you go.
And I
Yeah.
guess an angel gets their wings because that's what happens in popular Christianity when you die, you become an angel. So still tracks.
I had not thought of it that way, and I love it.
So I'm gonna be real with our listeners slash viewers at home or wherever you are as you're observing this. I got to the outline last because of having a really busy work week this week. And Emily and JM had done such amazing, beautiful, insightful notes that I'm like, I'm just not going to add anything to the outline because they pretty much cover everything. So I'll let them lead us through the film and also deeply. This is one of those movies where I feel like we can just combine the walkthrough and the deep theological discussion because it's all kind of wrapped in together. But I'll kind of let them lead the way here, and I'll add my thoughts here and there. But yeah, take it away, y'all. I'm excited for this.
Honestly, my first reaction when the movie started was like, oh yeah, llamas were like huge last year.
Yes.
They have the like inflatable llama. I don't know where they are this year, or else I'm just completely and utterly disconnected from all things Christmas
No,
because I
I
haven't
do
gotten
think it was a fad. I don't think it's around as anymore in the same way it was last year.
So what happened was that they all moved out. They looked us in the eye and said, "Hey, I'll pack a bag."
Oh dear Lord.
I love that.
Yeah, the pun masters now. Susanna, you and I are just gonna have to deal with all the puns tonight, aren't we?
You're welcome. Susanna secretly loves them. She just won't admit it.
I see that face.
I don't know. I like it when they are like intellectually creative. But
Like
when they're
yours,
just
JM.
like
Like when a llama uses alpaca?
yes, but like when they're intellectually creative, I get a kick out of it. But when they're just like what is called dad puns out there, I'm just like, ugh.
I do think Emily
You're
has some
an
pretty wicked
elitist
dad puns though.
punner.
Yep. Yep.
Bird. Yeah. One of the things that comes out like first in the like bigger picture stuff in the movie though, I think is the dynamics around race, racism, and white supremacy.
Mhm.
Because Black Girl dies in the first batch, right? She's basically the second target. And the angel, which Casey, you pointed out, I think JM pointed out maybe, and I like the angel of death who kills her is wearing white. All white.
Hooded white.
Mask, white, robe, everything.
And I will say, I do think the white is intentional on several levels, including around race, and also the fact that the Black girl just dies first, and she was the main, one of the very few people of color in the whole film.
Mm-hmm.
Well, die second, I guess, but still.
Yeah. I think technically actually third.
Oh, yeah.
Her grandpa dies, and then the guy she's kissing dies. And then she died. But like also it's also interesting to me that you might have said this something, but like then the characterization of is it Henry Waters?
Yes.
Yeah, but his characterization too, because he is the one trying to buy up everything and trying to own everything, and is wearing the white hood, the white angel outfit.
Mm-hmm.
Is yeah, he's just creepy.
Yeah, if you look at the tourism page or the Facebook page for a town, a ski town, and their public square Christmas tree has a tree topper that's that creepy, right? And so like did everyone catch that, right? The angel of death was the tree topper,
right,
in their town. If it's that creepy, you don't book tickets there, right? You don't get a room, you don't go there on vacation. You just like, oh, that's creepy, and you just don't go there. Something that I really liked was the way they played with color and light saturation and color saturation in this film. It was almost a little bit, we were kind of chit-chatting ahead. I said a little ham-fisted, like two on the nose. You've got this hobby photographer, wants to be a professional artist photographer. And so you get a lot of playing with light and light exposure. All these different sort of photographic techniques that help to relay the emotional setting, play with the idea of memory. And then my other sort of favorite thing is that found weapons are such a trope in horror movies,
Yeah.
where the innocent survivors, and I'll get back to that theme a little bit later, but where the innocent survivors aren't armed, right? And that's part of what makes them innocent survivors. And so they're constantly having to find stuff in the environment to fight the monster, fight the murderer, whoever's after them. My favorite one, though, was the car battery that the Christmas lights were all hooked up to, right?
Right.
I mean, that huge points for creativity, but then also there's all of this demonic or devil or fallen angel imagery throughout this film. And so the hero, she torches the devil with the light of Christmas, right? It's so cheesy. It's so incredibly cheesy. And at the same time, it's classic, right?
Yeah.
He goes up and he literally goes up in smoke. And so that for me was like one of those moments that was just like, because the other found weapon moments in the film were sort of boring. They were just blunt objects and broomsticks, and but the car battery with the clamps, that was top notch.
It's true. That was like it's a weird. I mean, it has to happen that way, kind of, for the rest of the story to take place. But most of my experiences in horror, right, the evil, the bad, doesn't get killed sometimes at all, but certainly not in the first 5 minutes before the credits even roll, before the title screen and stuff. And so like it's a really also, I think, a cool way of taking those tropes and then also flipping them and saying like, here's the tropes, but we just did the entire horror movie in 5 minutes. Now what? You have the rest of the movie. What's going to happen? How's it going to play out?
Yeah.
And I think especially the first time I watched it, that was like, okay, now what? Kind of thing.
Yeah. Roll credits and it's over.
I think that goes back to the screenwriter, Michael Kennedy, and just like the brilliance that he has. And it reminds me a lot of another queer screenwriter who did horror movies, Kevin Williamson, who did the Scream franchise and stuff, of just this like really very like queering the genre of horror and this intentionality around that I love. Both Michael Kennedy and Kevin Williamson have.
And because we're playing in this space of multiple worlds, multiple realities, multiple streams of thought, and you have a masked killer, you get to have, I think there's 3 Scooby-Doo moments in this movie, right? Where they're like, let's see who the real killer is, right? And of course, it's different at different points in the film. And that's also one of those things of playing with misdirection around, where is the danger, right? Like that's the whole, one of the big concerns in any horror film is where is the danger and how do you get away from it?
Yeah. And instead it's where's the danger and how do you find it? Yeah. Like how do you track the danger? How do you find the danger? How do you kill the danger? Because that's how you do back home to your own universe. Yeah. Yeah. Also, I really like the dynamic in the movie of like, you're George Bailey and will you be my Clarence? Like, that's really cute. And then actually the other way is the George, like, who's actually George Bailey and who's actually Clarence? And are we actually more entangled than that? That it is not one person, right? It's the false binary of either you're George Bailey or you're Clarence. And the reality is that they're both saving each other's lives. They're both helping each other realize why they should continue or why they want to continue to be alive and in the world and the good that they do and have done and can do, which I think is really helpful.
Yeah. I also think, because you brought that up, it's a good time to just quick talk about how death by suicide is a prominent theme of this movie and also of the original It's a Wonderful Life. And I think that's interesting how that is commented on by the film as well, but also just kind of used as a weird plot point too. It doesn't necessarily have depth or commentary beyond
It's not,
just its use as a plot point, I would say.
yeah,
That
it's not
references
as,
the original.
it doesn't dig deep into it.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, I get it because they're doing a lot in the movie, and also it's not just that it's a common theme in the original and in this movie, it's also something that increases significantly during the holidays, I mean, starting at Thanksgiving, right? But like December into January and February when it's darker and so people are getting less sun, but also just like there's more things to feel sad about and more memories and all of that stuff and more traumatic experiences and all of that that can be super isolating for folks.
Yeah.
And I think like they could have done
Yeah.
more with that. But it was also a really cool movie. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But speaking of that, suicidal ideation is a trauma response for some people. And the like movie in a lot of respects is just like a series of like the variety of trauma responses of this small town where like Winnie's whole family, except for her, is like, we're just gonna pretend like nothing happened because our kids are okay. And Winnie is like, I killed I killed a guy.
Yeah.
And I need to like process that a little bit. Um and then when it switches universes, you get like even more trauma responses because it's ongoing trauma, which, as some people have pointed out, I don't remember if you're the one that told me this, JM, but you can't, in order to heal, like really, really heal from trauma, you can't still be experiencing it.
Yes.
Like, I think there is some amount of healing you can do when you can't get out of traumatic situations, but like, you're never going to be really healing that trauma if it's ongoing, if you can't make it stop ever. And so that's
Yeah.
where drug use, alcohol, all of that increases.
And we see a ton of that, right, in the story. As things get worse, people dissociate in a variety of ways, but substance use is certainly one of the ways.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, I don't know, I don't think I can blame them, right? Like, you can't blame them. They're literally every couple weeks somebody new is getting killed in very violent ways while people are pretending like everything is fine. And I'm not exactly sure how they went an entire year without people realizing that there was one person in particular who was basically making bank off of all of these deaths. But to have them feel random at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one of the characters we see that has one of the more healthy responses to trauma is the one who doesn't live there full time, which is the aunt, Gail Prescott, which is an intentional reference to Scream, uh, of this characters of Sidney Prescott and Gail Weathers. But yeah, I just love her character. I love her witty commentary throughout. She's kind of like the queer voice of reason, I think. And I just love that. And my that also reminds me of my favorite line of the film, which is when uh Winnie opens her Christmas present and it's a pink tracksuit, and she's like, "Why did you get me a lesbian tracksuit?" And her aunt, who is a lesbian, says,
We would never wear that. Yeah, yeah. You know, it's funny. Living right in the valley of a ski resort. So I live in an environment that's not dissimilar from the imaginary environment in this film. And
Mhm.
you know what? Uh, uh, the bright Christmas color universe and the cold blue universe are both true here all the time.
Mhm. Oh yeah. I mean, I grew up in Vail, Colorado, right? Like there is nothing more magical than a ski resort in the wintertime because the trees are decorated. Like they go all out for that magical, beautiful Christmas, and also like it's yeah, it's a whole different.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is and I actually covered this on our villains era episode for Nerds at Church this year, but um, when I was a kid in Vail, there was a proposal for new stuff to be built on the mountain to expand the resort into um, lynx habitat, and um, right, and there was a lot of controversy around expanding, and there's a lot of like the politics of small town and resort town life, um, right, like to have Waters be buying up everything. Like I was like, yeah, okay, I get it.
Mhm.
Like Vail Resorts owns a ridiculous amount of the town. Um, and people were like not sure about building this expanding the mountain because it was potentially new, like it was potentially lynx habitat and all of that stuff. And then an environmental terrorist group burned down 2L, which was on the mountain, and that like burning it down ended up actually galvanizing the support for, because they were protesting the construction of this, ended up galvanizing the support for expanding the mountain. And I think about that like with this, where in this case it's Waters is doing the killing and reaping the benefits, and then the dad is. But like in Vale, it was like violence against property became the reason to expand and clear out trees and make ski runs and encroach on lynx habitat um, in not environmentally friendly ways per se, but in ways that would make Vail Resorts in particular lots more money. Not necessarily all of the people who lived and worked and had shops in Vail, but the ones who own the ski industry. Yeah.
So even though he's meant to be a small town figure, given that this film just came out last year, the idea of a whiny, infantile, narcissistic real estate developer who wears too much bronzer, who has daddy issues, being the villain in the story, I mean, that was pretty on the nose. But it also works two ways, right? So there's political commentary about what's going on in US politics. And at the same time, this sense of this more selfish son with daddy issues as an image of Satan, right? Right. So having issues with the creator, with the one who used to make things that were good and that were for everybody. Throughout the whole film, Winnie serves as a classic virgin innocent, right? She gets a kiss. That's it. And you know, of course, there's tons of the tropes that you see in a lot of teen slasher movies. Teen debauchery is prelude to murder, right? If kids are hooking up, someone's about to die, right? That's just a guaranteed thing. You also have the violence of unrestrained capitalism, the need for the people to push back. The town's called Angel Falls, right? Fallen angels. We talked a little bit about, right? The guardian angel, the white robes of white progress, right? Which always look like destroying nature and destroying individual opportunity for the sake of the one.
Yep.
You've got this bright, warm, multicolor lighting for the main timeline, color and blue monochrome for the parallel universe. Fun fact about old-fashioned photography, right? When you are using burning lamps, you get what we call a colder temperature of light, right? So your very blue end of the light spectrum by making the filament hotter. And you get warm light, what we call warm light, very orangey yellow glow by making the filament cooler. So blue light is actually like some of the hot, like in terms of photography technique, the hottest light, right? So even though everything's, so even though everything's draped in blue in the parallel universe, I was thinking that this is kind of this is the photographic hellscape, right? Right. Everything is under the hot blue light. You have both in both universes this idea of Christmas excess as mindless pleasure, as dissociative numbing. Did y'all catch that fun moment where the camera viewfinder is used as the glare of desire or the gaze of desire? Right? Like focusing in and finding the one person there that's just for you. And of course, it's a film camera, right? So there's all this whole parallelism between film cameras and memories, right? How memories are made, little snapshots, little moments. The camera gets destroyed, right? So memories being destroyed. The way traumatic memory works, especially the scene where Winnie is using the flash, right? As a way of like trying to light her way step by step through the dark theater. For a lot of people that have either PTSD or CPTSD, when they are in touch with their traumatic memories, they are very reminiscent of that series of flash photographs, right? It's disjointed. It doesn't make sense. It's sounds, it's motion, it's sensations. There's no clear thread or story that you can tell. And then the emotions are just overwhelming through all of it. So I thought that was some particularly brilliant storytelling there, using the camera. And then of course, the new camera for Christmas, right? Memories restored, reintegrated. You're finally safe. So then you can begin to heal. Let's see. All traumatic memories have a few things in common. They are too fast, too soon, too much, and generally unwitnessed. And we've talked about kind of all of these features, right? So all this stuff happens that's overwhelming. And then at the same time as someone's being overwhelmed, no one is actually acknowledging that it's overwhelming. No one is acknowledging that they have been overpowered, that their senses have been blown past. So there's a little bit of, sloppy makeup work where it's like, happy Winnie before the Christmas murders, dark eyeshadow Winnie, right before she decides to jump in the freezing river, which I think is, implied, but she gets taken up by the magical auroras. So there's all of that. I think that's really interesting. You have the subversion of the favored son trope, right? So in one case, the favored son is the villain. And the other case, the favored son is this literally gay football star kid, right?
Right.
So he's like about as normative as he could possibly be. He just has a boyfriend. The idea of naming a character Bernie that you're going to have a slow burn relationship with is so cheesy.
The puns,
right? The fact that her nickname is Weirdo, and if she's not ADHD coded, I don't know who is, right? Like
100%.
Everything about the character is meant to sort of scream neurodivergent, including the mystery wall with the conspiracy board.
Yep.
You stayed up all night researching this? Well, yes, it's what I do. It's fun.
Right.
And some other themes that I saw that came up. The horror of the holidays, right? We've talked about this a little bit. This time of year can actually suck. It can be lonely. It can be isolating. It can be really frustrating when you're getting constant bombardment of messages that say you should be happy, 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 happy. And maybe you don't feel happy. And so now you feel isolated from everyone else who is pretending to be happy, right? Angel of Vengeance. The fact that total kleptocracy just kind of leads to the lowest levels of hell, I think that's a pretty strong commentary. Oh, the naturally lighted Santa at Bernie's house, right? She is the thread back to the saintly reality, back to the healthy, holy reality. And little Saint Nick, who's actually lit up the correct color, is a sign of that. And then, of course, you get the idea of the aurora as some sort of divine light or mystical power. The importance of storytelling for survival, right? The characters don't really make it until they get to tell their stories. They have to tell their stories, they have to be witnessed, and then they're okay.
Well, and that's the connection piece for Winnie with her family in the alternate universe, right? It is when she can tell the story of her aunt wearing a thong at the whatever that one time. And like that's when the aunt's like, oh, it is you. And when she tells her dad the story, that's when he realizes, oh, it is you. Scary can't be possible. I don't understand. And goes into his like must kill mode. But like those stories, the particularly memorable stories are the ones that get the recognition between Winnie and the other characters too.
And they're the kind of stories that you really only do know inside Family and Chosen Family, right? They're not the kind of stories that you post about online or that sort of thing. This is a real strong trope, but the idea of pure love and its power to overcome the devil figure or the monster, right? There's one pure love, as in they don't fool around on screen, and that's Winnie and Bernie. And so therefore their love is strong enough to overcome the bad guy. You've got the two killer trope, which is a total wonderful nod to Scream. There's the question that they hold out for a moment, and I like that they actually held it for as long as they did about whether or not true love or pure love persists across the multiverse, across all these different spiritual dimensions, or does it only exist in one place? And so once it's lost, it's lost.
I was like sitting there waiting for her to remember Bernie. Even this time. Like, I was like, you gotta remember Bernie. You gotta go back for Bernie. Like, what about Bernie?
And then Bernie, of course, does Bernie remember? And that how that whole plays out.
And then, of course, Joy to the Girls as a celebration of what I called a less typical women-loving women triumph. We talked earlier about how there's some aspects of this that you might say are deme in nature, or that there's perhaps maybe a queer platonic structure to the way this relationship develops. It's not a classic hero heroine romantic ride in and save from the monster. So I really enjoyed the cheekiness of doing that as the outro.
Well, and I like what you said about it being demi and like a demisexual love story, and I think that that's really helpful because it doesn't like it is very sapphic, right? There is decidedly a like, are they flirting? Do they know? Do they each know the other person is like? Who knows who's flirting besides all of us watching it being like, so there's like that part and then the demisexual part. And I think that it's so easy to gloss over demisexuality in films and in romantic tropes because there's the like pure love virgin like right like there's the purity thing that I think a lot of times just gets demisexuality things could be coded as demisexual and also just get like interpreted as just being proper about stuff. And so I think it's really helpful for me to, as you said, like to point it out and be like, no, this is Like, sure, maybe it's that, but realistically, it works really well as an example of demisexuality. And we demonize demisexuality and asexuality so much as like people being broken, but also we want people to do that. And so like holding that tension of like you demonize it until that's what like you're giving the examples of for all of the things. That's the trope, is demisexuality as the thing that is good, as the type of sexuality that is acceptable. Yeah.
Also, what kind of kiss is so good that you remember it across dimensions? I mean, it's got to be pretty good, right?
Right.
I could, yeah. It's got to be weird. I don't know if the cis-hets can kiss that well.
No.
James said, no.
No. No. I might tank your ratings, but no.
I mean, if there were any cis-hets left who like,
right. If they've
would
been
get
dealing
them
with
with
our queer bullshit for 7 seasons now.
yeah.
Yeah. So I have one more question. This one's for you, Susanna, because Emily let slip that you didn't necessarily like this one. So I'm curious what you did not like about it. Did you hate watch it? Was it fun? Did you like not?
No, like
Was it like a fun
I
hate,
like.
or did you like not
I'm not a
dig it
campy
at all?
person. I'm like not a campy person, I guess. Is all.
Ah,
Yeah,
it is
I'm
very
not.
campy.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't like campy humor all that much.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
like I mean, and there are some camp. I mean, have you seen the Wrath of Becky?
Mm-hmm.
Not yet, but I
That
plan
one
to.
is like
We need to watch it.
that one I guess you could call campy, but it's about this girl whose parents were killed by like white supremacist neo-Nazi people, and she goes on a killing rampage and kills these people, and it's like full of body horror, and it was the first time that I ever experienced like not being bothered by body horror. And so I guess I don't mind if you smash things through somebody's eyeball if they are being misogynist, apparently. Um, which is new to me. Like I apparently don't care. So it had a little bit of campy, but it had that like that I liked so much. And I guess like maybe if she would have killed him, maybe if she would have killed more viscerally, I would have liked it better. Like I am looking forward to this conversation. Like I was looking forward to this, like I'm like you where I like see the notes and I'm like, ooh, this is gonna be good because I'm into this conversation about it, right? But like I'm generally not a campy person. Which is odd because
That's
I
all
like
fair.
Buffy. I'm not sure. Buffy's campy as hell, but like I just, I was like,
It's all good. Yeah. I It definitely is camp, and the type of queer camp that we get with things like Hocus Pocus or Scream, the first Hocus Pocus, not the god awful second one. Especially now that Bette Midler is a turf. But like, there's this, or like I even think of like John Waters, Baltimore Hero, just that level of
That's
queer
why I
camp
keep messing
commentary.
up the mayor's name. I could not, like, for the life of me, figure out if it was Henry or John.
That would do it.
I mean, I'm sure the last name Waters was chosen for that reason, though.
Yeah.
Very likely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The whole affect, like the contrast between the affected creepiness of Waters and the way he was played versus the sort of every doof that Joel McHale plays in everything he does, right? Even as Killer Dad, he was still every doof. That was also really interesting. The way that they showed that power differential, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was so, Mayor Waters was just so awful, like creepy, awful.
Mm-hmm.
I like almost skin crawly in like the way that he talked to them, because it was this like cutesy babyish, like I don't have exactly the right, but while he's saying
Well,
like you dumb little sluts, right, but he's like,
But like
oh
baby talk.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
And
I
true to what JM pointed out earlier, like Justin Long did say that he modeled this off of a few things, his performance, one of which being a certain former and soon to be current president. But also he wanted his character to have strong Boomer and Karen vibes, which I think show up too.
yeah.
There's also something about that sort of infantile affect that um so um like true classic narcissism, right, is this idea that I am the only thing that matters, I am the universe. And it actually turns out we're all born that way, right? And then we differentiate around 2 or 3 and we figure out that actually I am this tiny little thing, the universe is giant, now I'm terrified. But that's okay, like that's how it's supposed to work, right? And for folks that have like deeply embedded narcissistic tendencies, they actually never really lose that perspective that I am the universe, right?
Mm,
So there's something about this whole thing of like baby talk, and then what does it look like when a grown man is a baby? It looks like him sucking up the entire town until he owns every last thing, until the town is all him, the universe is all him, right? Even the people with their glowing possessed eyes are all like everything is him.
Yeah. Well, and his
Not very
also his
Christmassy.
also his brother is just a like weird one, Austin. Like dick pics or videos into sheriff, into also killed. Like
yeah.
he just always, I'm just like, I don't know, maybe there is a trope of like the buffoon sidekicky something
Yeah,
something.
I did have one feeling about this, like the dad, like enabling him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And he
true.
waters to take, yeah.
The dad was very much a sycophant,
And like, right,
sycophant.
so like there's like this thing about the cishet normativity, particularly white
Hmm.
cishet normativity, that there is this like enabling that turns into something else because they're so drawn to being close to power that it
When it's the
changes
Yeah.
who
boys
they
club,
are as
it's the
people.
good old boys club.
It's a good old
Yep.
boys club. Yeah,
And
I definitely saw that.
there's very intentional commentary here as well on the bland white cis dude failing up.
Yeah.
And like 30 Rock also has that with the John Hamm character. I just love that trope when it shows up and they're like, yep, this is the thing that happens. And they're usually the
He's
shittiest, worst people.
right. He's so mediocre. Our only choice is to promote him.
Right?
I mean, there are people who have talked about pastors and wanting their pastor to be bishop because then at least they would be out of their congregation and they couldn't do the things in their congregation that they were doing. So,
That is the same trope.
yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, I see that a lot. Actually, like the person I'm most afraid of in any nonprofit is the person with the title director of special projects, because that is the person that they couldn't get rid of, but they um but was willing to let go of, like, had an ego that was big enough that they were willing to let go of whatever fishbowl they were in charge of for this other brand new position that was created for them. But it's usually a person that I do not want to work with because they couldn't get rid of them. And so they became special projects, which really means removing them from the day to day. Right. So I'm always terrified of that.
Right.
Of that
And
use.
getting them out of like the mentoring line of succession for like director of operations, executive director, those kind of roles,
Mhm.
because you don't want that person to end up as the senior leader. They're going to hurt people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really hard to get them to let go of their position, whatever it may be. So you create this whole new position for them, and it's usually called something like special projects, or I don't know, something. I'm always terrified of those people.
So I have a question with everything we've talked about in mind, with the whole film in mind, right? We've talked about greed, we've talked about excess, we've talked about dissociation and wild partying. What is Christmas about? Using this film as a jumping, like, what is Christmas really? What's the true meaning of Christmas now that you've seen this movie?
Making out with your best friend.
I'm down with that. That works.
Solid. I mean, that's what they were setting her and her actual best friend up for, was to make out, and then they killed her because she was black.
Then her new best friend make out. Woo!
Yeah.
I mean, for me, obviously, it would be like the meaning of Christmas for Sapphics anyway is killing the old, cishet normativity in order to be born again into your queer empowered self. Like, it's not just like, oh, I had to kill my family to be queer. It was also in order to be empowered, in order to feel like you matter in the world, in order to feel like you're not invisible. There are parts of the like cishet normativity schema that need to be literally knifed from your life.
For sure. My second answer.
That's Christmas.
My second answer is going to be, after the friends making out, was going to be attaching capitalists to batteries, but
I mean, definitely that. But I think so. This is fascinating, Susanna, because as we were talking, I was thinking about this dynamic with Winnie, that she literally like has to kill her dad. And in the original universe, right, she is not happy with her family, particularly her parents. She is pissed at them because they got her an ugly pink tracksuit for Christmas, and they got her brother a fucking truck. Right. And so like there's a sense of like, is it catharsis in any capacity for her to have killed her dad? And at one point, like, she says to Waters, Waters is like, well, your dad was supposed to take care of you or whatever, and she's like, we fucking killed him, right? And she says it with like, the overwhelming emotion is just anger and like, bring it kind of sense. And so I think there is that you're talking about, Susanna, with like, kill the old, here's the new girlfriend. And the foil for that, though, is that she goes back to that universe and loves her parents and wears that pink fucking tracksuit to shout to everyone that everything is great and all is good in the world. And it goes to our question that we have started to ask in this season of, does it pass the HNAC test?
no.
Right. So for
It
those
does not.
who don't know, particularly JM for you, the HNAC test is a test, like the Bechdel test.
Mm-hmm.
So the HNAC test asks, it's a two-part. So the first one is, when someone has caused harm, do they die?
As a form of repenting
of like
for the
redemption.
harms. Or
Is
redeeming.
there redeeming themselves that they die?
Through death.
If so, they fail the HNAC test. if they don't die, do they actually start to repair the harm? Is there like a clear path of repairing the harm, not just forgetting? And I would say that in this one, it like the parents have caused significant harm, and they like say they're sorry, but they don't repair any damage. I don't think that they actually are taking meaningful steps to repairing the damage, because the way she's acting is like everything is fine now. And it's not, but like that is, I think, a cue that a lot of people who are uncomfortable with grief and trauma and pain will take to be like, okay, we're good now. We said sorry. The end. And so I agree with Pace that I think it fails the HNAC test. Which was me jumping around a whole bunch in our.
Yeah,
no,
so good.
That tracks. In my mind, the main character, Winnie's stronger sense of identity, would have been better served by being able to bring her new person into contact with chosen family than to go back to the family that was discounting her.
Yeah.
And it's hard because the aunts were not the ones discounting her.
But they're there, right? They show up.
Okay.
They show up in time for Christmas Day, so
Yep. Yeah.
probably brought some cool cheeses from a shop in New York or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am curious, Susanna, what you think about that, because it like takes your idea, but also like doesn't, and because I liked your idea.
No, I if your test is solely about the people who do harm, yeah, it doesn't pass the test. But I don't necessarily think that's I am a sapphic, so I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think that's a reality. I think that's a matrix moment for sapphics. So there's a point in your like sapphic awakening where you realize that particularly men, but also women that are cishet, they just experience the world differently than you. That's why I always feel like my gender identity is more lesbian. Like, I know that's an orientation, but for me it feels like a gender identity, because the cishet women, I don't understand how they walk in their world. I don't understand how they walk in their bodies or anything, right? So like they just live they experience their bodies, their worth, their everything so completely differently in every word that they utter, right? And so there's this moment in sapphic awakening, in my opinion, where it's like Neo and suddenly seeing the code and everything, right? So for me, the recognition that the cishet heteronormativity doesn't change is the awakening. It's an awakening where it's like they don't change. If they would have changed, then would it have been a sapphic awakening? I don't know. I mean, that's part of what we learn, is that it doesn't change. Your empowerment has to come from yourself. You finding closure has to come from yourself. It doesn't come from another person redeeming themselves, because they won't.
Yeah.
That actually resonates, honestly. Like the perfect ally verse would actually be a third universe that is not present in this movie.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And it's also not real, right?
It's not real.
And so I guess in that sense, being able to return to quote unquote the real world, much more integrated, is a victory, even if it doesn't pass the official test for the show.
Yeah. Being empowered, even though the test fails, Yeah, that's
Well, the test is specifically about redemption arcs. It does not mean anything about the quality or reality of the film.
yeah.
Um,
So yeah,
and
now they're not redeemed.
but also I like the, for instance, when we were watching Friday the 13th, I said that one also doesn't pass the HNAC test, but I don't want it to. And I think this might be
Yeah.
another movie where it doesn't need to pass it because
Yeah.
that's not the point of the film.
Yeah.
Although
I do
there
think
is
there is one.
I was just gonna say the one thing about the same kind of ending though to Wizard of Oz, which you already covered this season, where it's like, oh, I'm back in my bio fam, my chosen fam has been left behind, and all's right with the world. It's not. It kind of is a little bit. It's a way of making it palatable for cis straights, I think.
Yeah, I didn't get into NYU for film because I belong in this small town life forever. Does not, yeah. I do think, I will say, the one space that I think the HNAC test does get passed is that on the first night, she calls Bernie weirdo with everybody else. And, like, Bernie was trying to spare her feelings. Instead, she accuses her of, like, trying to cover up Robbie cheating on her. So I think there's like an extent to which maybe there's harm both ways, but she definitely calls her weirdo and like dismisses her and goes away and kind of has like wants nothing to do with her. And then in the alternate universe, they get to know each other better. But also she starts calling her Bernie and she starts recognizing the weird things that she does and how cool they are. And so it starts reframing. And so like that part I think is a way of like without having actually ever apologized for calling her weirdo, it does feel like a shift and a repairing harm kind of thing that she is doing in being in genuine relationship with her and affirming and like recognizing Bernie as a complete and whole person and the weird coolness that she brings.
You know, something else that we didn't touch on at all. So Bernie's in the working at the cinema, is the only storyteller in this Christmas movie who tells Christmas stories, right? Through these old black and white Christmas movies that she's in love with. And so you know, you know, it's probably a longer conversation than we have time for, but there's something about really just the genuine hollowness of Christmas all through the film, the main film, and the fact that this movie within a movie is where the director and the writers have hidden these nods to kind of the more classical Christmas tropes of self-transformation and generosity and discovering love. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting component as well, that it wasn't just their own stories, but also telling the actual Christmas story that was part of the transformation.
Yeah.
Which brings me back to the question which you asked all of us, but you have yet to answer. Is there a Christmas message in the film for you that you saw? Or is it all just these other film within a films?
No, I think that the message, if you will, is the really kind of the messiness of being in the world, right? Which is like a core part of at least the Christian Christmas story, and that if you synthesize, right, cold blue hell with bright happy Christmas and all of the just sort of very surface level treatment, that underneath all of that mess, the good, the bad, the ugly, there's this power of story, and there's this power of self-disclosure, right? And I think that for me could be a really cool meaning of Christmas this year. The power of self-disclosure to tell the true story.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I also really like the born in like the in the midst of the messiness. Because I actually really like everything you're saying, Jam. Partly because I have been watching a ton of Christmas movies, and almost every Christmas movie boils down to like the official line for what is the meaning of Christmas is family, love. One of the two, maybe both. And technically, those are like true for the religious aspects of Christmas, right? Like we think about Jesus as love incarnate, and we think about Jesus being born to a family that like actually was this chosen family community of people crammed together in a house because a census was being taken and they had to all be in the same place and there wasn't anywhere else to stay, so they stayed in the center of the house where it was warm with the animals, right? And so there's like love and family, but not at all the way it's portrayed in any of the movies. But part of that is the messiness of it, right? The messiness of people living on top of each other, of animals, and all of the things. And this is a messy movie.
Yeah.
Mostly because of
Very,
blood.
it's a bloody mess.
It's a bloody mess, but also Christmas, probably a bloody mess, at least for
Yep.
Mary.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like
And
those connecting.
the infant. Yeah, and the one other kind of Christmas message we sometimes get in popular films is generosity, but like a very watered down generosity. If they're feeling spicy, they might throw that in addition to family and love. But I guess we should wrap this up because it is late and we are tired, and all of us, well, most of us work tomorrow, I think. So out of 10, I guess we'll pick creepy angel dolls that are tree toppers. Out of 10 of those, what would you rate this movie? And do you have a favorite kill? And I'll give you all time to think. Emily usually has me go first, so I'll go first while you all think, which is I'll rate it 7.5 out of 10 creepy angel dolls. So the half is missing a wing and or something. I don't know.
Okay, I was gonna say top half or bottom half. Missing a wing. Gotcha.
Yeah. It was fun. Not like quality, but like a romp. It was fun, and I enjoy it. And there is still, of course, like some quality queer commentary and stuff happening too. But overall, just fun. My favorite kill, hands down, the battery Christmas lights. Come on, it's themed to the holiday. Like, how much more fun themed found weapon can you get?
It's true. It's true. Jam, do you have a?
I would be inclined to give it, either 7 or 8, so maybe 7.5. Creepy Angels. It was about 3/4 of a quality film, and and so I do love the battery kill, but if we're gonna pick out a second one, in terms of both the cinematography and the way it used silence, or mostly very quiet sounds, was the window kill, where the young man was being chased by the angel using the hatchet, right? So the hatchet kill is very, very violent. It requires lots of blows, and there's just so many things there, right? Like the human being as a literal natural resource, right? He's being chopped up like firewood for the Christmas fire, and the people inside the party are so far gone that they don't even see the violence happening right outside their window. And we don't have axe murders on the regular where I am, but I think about the fact that already, and it hasn't even been that cold yet, but we've had 3 publicly identified individuals freeze to death outside where I live. And it's a huge, I'm afraid we're going to see more of it this winter. And the way in which what really is horrific violence can be happening right outside our window and we're not looking, we're not paying attention, we're lost in something else. And so if there's a parallel kind of moral of the story, if the meaning of Christmas is some people are being revealed for who they really are, then the invitation for all of us is to actually see them.
Yeah.
That's a great circle around your horror story too. Like, you're coming full circle with
All
that.
back.
It all comes together.
I really like it. Minus Waters. Henry Waters is creepy as fuck, and I cannot handle any time he talks. But aside from that, which is, on purpose, I give it an 8.5. 8.5 angels. I'll give it the top half of the angel instead of the bottom half. And that one in particular is the brother who's got the knife in it, so it's just blood coming from the neck. That half of an angel.
Love it.
And I
wait, I'm putting the results up. Can you tell me what your rating was again, Pace?
Mine was 7.5.
Okay, cool. All right, continue gaily forward. Thank you.
So 8.5, the bloody top half. And I also really loved the battery lights. That was going to be my favorite kill. It's hard. I feel like now I have to come up with a second favorite kill. It's not the battery lights because all of us had. But I really just love the battery lights. I do like the moment where she's like, "Did you eat something weird?" No, that's blood coming out of his mouth.
Yep.
But yeah, battery lights are my favorite.
What about you, Susanna? What would you rate it?
I mean, for this discussion, I would rate it a 9.5. For watching it in my free time, a 3. I just don't can't be. But hate watching it in order to have this discussion, yeah, that would be a 9.5. To watch any movie, any of your movies with you and JM, fucking 9 point at a minimum always. Because I love, I feel like it's important. I feel like it's really super important. And I feel like, particularly during the holidays, I have to give it some credit. Kill your heteronormative cishet family during the holidays, and that's a Christmas spirit. Okay. You know what? If you can have Die Hard, I can have this. I'll do it from that perspective, the Sussets can go ahead and have their Die Hard, and I'll take this, not a problem.
I love it. Yeah. Do you have a favorite kill?
The dad.
Yeah. Fair.
The dad, he was an enabler. Was hardcore enabler. So
did you have any jump scares, Emily?
I don't think I did. There were a couple moments where things were a little bit more tense, but it did not get to the point of jump scares for any of them. I think maybe the first time I watched it, I had a jump scare or two, like the snow person on the doorstep, but not this time around because I already saw it before.
Yay!
Old hat.
Love it. Well, I believe our next movie is The Witches of Eastwick. Probably. I'm not 100% sure. Before we, because that's the one we postponed. But before we go, thank you again so much, JM. Where can our listeners find you? If you have any social medias or stuff you want to shout out, any projects, anything like that that you care to share. Shameless plugs.
Sure. I just want to make sure I'm giving out the right All right. Okay. If folks go to it's actually, you know what? I'm just gonna grab this and drop it in the chat too, so you have it. But it's Green Mountain Friar OEF, which is a writeas.com website. That's my practice blog. I have information and both about who I am and what I do, as well as reflections, because I do this kind of, I didn't have any jump scares because I had my notebook in front of me and I had my listening ears on. It's really kind of funny how, because I've been trained to do this sort of one-on-one listening work, I can put myself in that mode for a film too. And it's just not as scary that way. It's just not as scary that way. So,
I find that the more I pay attention, sorry, the more I'm paying attention, the more like focused I am at like catching the things, the more likely I am to jump scare. Versus if I'm like painting while I do the thing, playing two dots. Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
But thanks for having me. It's been lovely. These are always fun conversations.
Yeah. Like I said, we'll have to have you back on when we do our Godzilla season in 2 seasons from now. And also, all of you listeners, go out and check the Silent Night, Deadly Night episode. JM, it was a really fun conversation back then. I'll make sure I link in the show notes for those of you listening. And now, Emily, you can watch it too, and then you can go back and listen to the past episode.
I know.
Well, Yep. Well, that's it for this episode. Merry Christmas again to all of you who celebrate. Happy Hanukkah, all the things. Happy Kwanzaa tomorrow and Boxing Day for all you capitalists in the UK, which is ironic and sad that the holiday is named after opening the poor boxes and giving money to the poor, and it's become a big shopping holiday in the UK. Kind of like the equivalent of Black Friday here in the US. But
I
anyway.
never knew that.
Yep. Our theme music though is by Matt May, and our super witchy tech magic was by Susanna Porter. Yay! Horror Nerds at Church releases seasonally with a live video on Tuesday evenings and audio on your favorite podcast provider on the following Thursday, unless where it's a holiday like Christmas and we drop on Wednesday. Please comment, rate, subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Support us on Patreon. Get access to exclusive movie commentary episodes, BooTube episodes, and so much more bonus content by going to patreon.com/horrornerdsatchurch. It's only $5 to sign up, so cheaper than any tree topping ornament I've ever seen, and especially a creepy angel one. Although you might be able to find one at like a thrift store. Those are pretty creepy. I could imagine a lot of people getting rid of those if they're gifted them. But anyway, follow us on the socials, Facebook, Insta, Horror Nerds at Church, Blue Sky, Twitter, HNAC, POD, for all the latest updates about upcoming films, news, and other announcements. Until next time, remember, every time a bell rings, someone dies. And an angel gets their wings.